Well, this is a brief video about taking the valves out of a flathead Ford engine. This one happens to be a 46 through 48 59 AB in pretty good shape, actually, as you can tell by the valve valley. It's not all that gummed up. At this point, I've taken out or removed 14 of the 16, and I've made my share of mistakes. Boy, have I. But I've learned a lot. So maybe some of what I've learned might be helpful to you. Here's what I used to take out the valves, the 14 so far. As you can see on the far right is actually a little magnet, which is kind of handy to pick up some of the smaller pieces. The little clip that holds the valve spring to the bottom of the valve. Now these are the tulip valves, and they're a pain. For instance, you can see that it's got that little, it's not a straight stem. So you've got, this will not pull out through the valve guides, which are here, because of that tulips. So what you have to do is remove the clip, which is this, compress the spring, remove the clip, which is easier than it says. Then in my case, the engine would turn over, and that's important because you want to turn it over to where your lifter is as low as it'll go, because you need the spring, the ability to compress the spring. So once you remove the clip from the bottom, compress the spring, remove the clip. What I had to do, since most of my valve guides were stuck, see, they go together. I think most people know this. They go together and are helped with this clip. This clip goes right here that holds it together. And that tends to bind in the block. Now, I soaked the lifters, the guides. I soaked the guides with a 50-50 mixture of acetone and automatic transmission fluid for several days before I tried this. And actually, 3 of the intake valves did come out like they're supposed to, using this massive thing here, which is about as useless. One of the least useful tools you see on the floor here. So what I would have to do in most cases would take the Dremel tool with the cutoff and cut the valve spring in the middle. And I found out I cut it too low one time, cut it too high one time, so you cut them right in the middle. You come in the side. It takes about 20 or 25 seconds. Letting that Dremel tool cutoff will cut through. It tries to cut about 3 at one time, but as long as you get through one of them. And then I took the pry bar, this, and forced the spring sideways, and it would break off. And the bottom, well, let me back up. Once you get the clip undone from the bottom, you pull the valve up as far as it will go, what I did, and grab it while it's as far up as it'll go, when it grabs about right there, with the vice grips. That keeps the valve stem up as far as it'll go. That lets you pry out the bottom half of the spring, and then the top half drops down and you can pry it out. Now you've got your valve in the valve guide, but you removed the keeper, which is here, and the valve spring. So theoretically, this big bar will grab this groove on the bottom of the valve guide. There's a little groove there. Theoretically, it'll grab it and pull it down enough for you to remove the clip from this groove. That's this clip here. And if it does, and like I say, 3 of my intake valves did do that, then you pull that out and you can take since your valve's already sticking up, you can take something like this big pry bar and pry the valve up. The tulip part will hit the bottom of the valve guide and the whole system will come out. Now that's ideal. So three of the 14 I've got out so far came out that way. The rest, you'll have to do what I'm going to say next. While you've got it pried up and you're going to have it clamped about there, and it's sticking out of the top of your block, and you take the cutoff tool. This just happens to be a Walmart Hyper Tough cheapie. It's not cheap, but with about a 4-inch cutoff, or 4-inch cutoff, metal cutoff, and you cut the head of the valve off. It's sticking up, and you're careful. Your your vice grips are protecting you because you got the vice grips between the block and the head of the valve. And I counted it. It only took about 10 seconds to cut the head of the valve off. So it's real quick. I was surprised by that. And that leaves you with this valve stem sticking about that much out of the block. That's where your vice grips have been. And since it won't pull out through the top because it's stuck, corroded through the years, what I did is take this, which is 3/8 inch drive, and I think this one is, I'll have to clean it off a little bit and see. It's an 11/16, and you put it in here, the top of the valve stem sticking up. This goes down against the top of the valve guide, and you just take a hammer and drive it out, and it drives it right on down, and it comes out the bottom. You remove the valve guide and the valve stem, and you've got that taken care of. Now, like I say, I learned that the hard way. It took me several tries to figure out how to cut the valve stem, how to drive it back down through, and so forth. So that worked for me. And of course, if you've got a stuck engine that won't turn, then you've got a whole different set of problems. But having one that will turn is a big benefit. So to go over it again, make sure your lifter is down as far as it'll go. See where my finger? Because if it's stuck up in the air, let's see if I can find one that's up. Yeah, like, see it or not. But see how that one's up in the air? Then you don't have enough room to compress your spring to take that bottom clip off. So rotate it to get it down as low as it'll go. Then another little trick, on the bottom of the valve spring, go as low as you can to put your pickle fork in. In other words, don't go up in here. Let's see if I can show that. Don't go up several, go right down at the bottom, as low as you can get, just above the coil. And then I used a hammer to drive it in. And you've got it good and solid then. Then that's where your cheater bar comes in. This is probably the handiest tool of the bunch. It's about 2.5 feet long. And you put that in, and you can lift that valve spring. I'm not going to do it now because I haven't hammered it in. But you can lift that valve spring and hold it very comfortably. Hook it under if I'm right-handed, I hook it under my left armpit, and I can hold it up without any problem while I fish out that little clip that goes underneath it. And like I say, if you're lucky, and if your acetone and automatic transmission fluid works, then this bar will fit into the that groove on the valve guides, and you can pull it down enough to get the retaining clip out and then pull it through the top. But like I say, I'm 3 out of 16 on that, because the last 2 are exhaust valves, and on all the exhaust valves I had to cut the valve spring in half. Now this process is obviously assumes, since you're doing grinding and cutting, that you're going to have the block clean before you put it back together. So anyhow, I hope that helps. Again, you've got the cutoff grinder, you've got your Dremel with a cutoff tool to cut your springs, you've got a pry bar that I just found to be handy for all kinds of things, vice grips, cheater bar, the pickle fork, a good old hammer to drive the 11/16 or whatever I said it was a while ago, to drive those down through the block. A good screwdriver. You always need a screwdriver to reach in and grab stuff. This thing I got from Speedway Motors, but I could have done the whole thing without it. And quite frankly, this little magnet's kind of neat. If you need to pick something up like this, you've got it, and it's kind of like another finger along the way. So I hope that's helpful. Like I say, I learned a lot, and this would have been helpful to me before I got started. And good luck.